My sister called me a pathetic joke. At dinner, Dad laughed too. I quietly paid the bill for everyone and left. An hour later they found out who owns the restaurant. They hadn't invited me in years, not for birthdays, holidays, or even those awkward weekend brunches my family used to force on each other. So when my sister, Angela, texted out of the blue asking if I wanted to grab dinner with the family, I should have known something was up. The message was worded too carefully. "Hey, Dad wants to get everyone together. He said you should come too. We're going to this amazing place called Cordella's. You've probably never heard of it, very exclusive." I smirked when I read that last part. Cordella's? Yeah, I'd heard of it. I just never told them why. For years, they looked at me like I was this perpetual screw-up. I was the quiet one, the late bloomer, the one who never quite lived up to Angela's picture-perfect life. She was all charm and shine, straight-A student turned corporate darling, now married to some plastic version of a man named Travis. My father adored her, the way some men adore a brand-new car, all polish and no substance. Me? I was the cautionary tale they whispered about at family gatherings. They still thought I was floating through life, working odd jobs and wasting my time on silly projects. They didn't know about Cordella's, about what I'd built. And that night, as I walked through the front doors of the restaurant, my restaurant, something inside me clicked. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to watch. From the moment the maitre d' saw me, everything shifted. His eyes lit up. "Good evening, Mr. Larson," he said, smiling with that mix of deference and warmth I'd trained my staff to offer. "Your guests have arrived. Shall I take you to them?" I nodded. He offered to escort me through the back entrance, to keep things discreet, but I shook my head. "No. Let's go the usual way." So we walked through the center of the dining room, passing polished marble floors and candlelit tables where CEOs and celebrities dined in hushed tones. I could feel the weight of eyes turning toward me, some with curiosity, others with recognition. But not my family. No, they were too busy talking. Too busy laughing at something Angela had just said, probably at someone's expense. The moment I reached the table, Angela looked up. Her face twisted slightly, like she'd smelled something unpleasant. "Oh," she said. "You came." Dad gave a distracted grunt. "Didn't think you'd show, son." I slid into the empty seat across from them, and as I sat down, I noticed the name card beside my plate. They'd misspelled my name. "Nice place, huh?" Angela said, glancing around. "You probably had to Google how to dress." I didn't reply. I just smiled. They had no idea they were dining in the house I'd built. Dinner began the way most of our family gatherings did, awkward small talk, polite inquiries that weren't meant to be answered, and long stretches where the only sound was silverware clinking against porcelain. Angela dominated the conversation, as usual. She was in rare form that night, talking about her latest promotion, Travis's new golf membership, and how exhausting it was to travel first class to corporate retreats. My father beamed at every word, nodding like her personal hype man. I let it wash over me. I wasn't there to interrupt. I was there to observe. At one point, she leaned across the table and glanced at my plate. "Did you even know how to pronounce half the things on this menu?" she asked, laughing as if she was in on some joke I wasn't aware of. "I mean, it's not takeout, right? I hope it's not too complicated for you." Travis chuckled, half-heartedly. Even he seemed embarrassed. My father joined in, more amused than he should have been. "Don't pick on your brother, Angie," he said, still laughing. "It's not his fault he never figured out what to do with his life." I took a sip of my wine. My hands were steady. Angela tilted her head and gave me that look, that smirk she'd perfected since we were kids. The one that said, "You'll never measure up." Then she said it. "You know, you're a bit of a pathetic joke, Tom. I mean, look at us. Look at you." Silence rippled across the table. Travis shifted uncomfortably. Even the waiter paused mid-pour. But my father laughed again, like it was the best punchline he'd heard all year. I stared at her for a long moment. My father. Then down at my plate. Then I folded my napkin slowly and placed it beside my fork. Without saying a word, I raised my hand. My maitre d' was watching from across the room. He saw the signal immediately and nodded once, discreetly. A moment later, the head waiter approached the table with the check, an elegant black folder. Already? Angela said, confused. We haven't even. I'll take care of it, I said, my voice calm. Still no anger, no emotion. Just clarity. I pulled out my card, black, unmarked, the kind only a few banks issue, and handed it to the waiter. He took it with a subtle bow and vanished. Angela raised an eyebrow. My father looked like he just realized something was off. But before they could ask, I stood up. I hope you enjoyed dinner, I said quietly. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't go far, just enough to watch from a quiet alcove by the bar, tucked behind one of the velvet partitions. I sipped a single malt and let the music, soft and slow, wrap around the murmurs of the dining room. They stayed at the table, frozen in confusion for a while. Angela looked annoyed, tapping her manicured fingers against the stem of her wine glass. My father squinted toward the exit, probably wondering why I hadn't made a scene. Travis just looked uncomfortable. Like a man who suddenly realized he was in a room far above his pay grade. It didn't take long. Exactly 45 minutes later, the maitre d' approached their table. He had a very specific way of moving, poised, measured, with the kind of dignity that made people instinctively respect him. He leaned in and said something too soft for me to hear from where I sat, but the effect was immediate. Angela's face went pale. My father sat straighter, his eyes darting around the room. Travis blinked slowly, then turned to Angela with a look that was half confusion, half awe. And then came the words. I couldn't hear them, but I'd written the script myself months ago, just in case this day ever came. I hope everything was to your satisfaction this evening, the maitre d' would have said. It's always an honor to serve guests of Mr. Larson. Angela, I imagined, asking. Who? The maitre d' would have paused, smiled gently, then clarified. Mr. Tom Larson. The owner of Cordella's. There it was. Angela's mouth moved like she was trying to form a sentence, but no sound came out. My father's eyes widened, and he slowly turned to look at the entrance, as if I might still be standing there. I wasn't. I was behind them, watching the realization crawl across their faces like spilled wine creeping across white linen. The maitre d' nodded once more and walked away, leaving them in stunned silence. From across the room, I raised my glass in their direction, though they couldn't see me, and took a slow, deliberate sip. Let the truth marinate. They hadn't just mocked a man. They'd mocked the man who paid for their meal, owned the floor beneath their feet, and signed the checks of every person who just witnessed their humiliation. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, Cordella's Instagram posted a single photo. It was elegant and understated, a dimly lit shot of the private dining room, the table immaculately set, champagne flutes catching just a hint of golden light. The caption read, Last night, we were honored to host a very special guest. A man who built this place from the ground up, despite what others said, despite the odds, despite being underestimated. Thank you, Mr. Larson, for reminding us what quiet strength looks like. No names. No drama. Just enough. I watched the likes roll in, regulars, food critics, even a few influencers tagging the post with fire emojis and hearts. A couple of the waitstaff commented with inside jokes. One simply wrote, The boss does it again. Another, He played it so smooth. It didn't take long for Angela to see it. She followed Cordella's, of course. Had even bragged about snagging a reservation to her friends a week before. I imagined her scrolling through her feed in the kitchen that morning, her coffee growing cold as her eyes fixed on that caption. I knew her mind well enough. She'd piece it together. That look on the waiter's face. The maitre d's tone. My card. The deference. And then it would hit her. This wasn't just my restaurant. This was my world. I got the first text an hour later. Can we talk? Then another. I didn't know. You should have told us. No apology, though. Not yet. Angela had always been the kind of person who needed to feel in control to say sorry. And right now, she was slipping. That's when I made the next move. Quiet. Professional. Clean. I logged into the reservations portal and flagged every booking tied to her number, her name, and my father's, too. Blocked. Future visits? Declined. From now on, they could try to book a table, but Cordella's wouldn't have room. Not for them. Let them wonder. Let them stew. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity. It took 2 days for Angela to swallow her pride. She called late, nearly midnight, when she probably thought I'd be too tired to argue. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was different. Measured. Like she was trying to find the right version of herself to wear. Tom, she started. I think we got off on the wrong foot at dinner. I almost laughed. Is that what that was? A pause. Then a sigh. Okay. I was harsh. I didn't know that place was yours. And if you had? I asked. Would you have treated me differently? Another pause. Longer this time. Look, she said finally. I just think we should talk. Maybe clear the air. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. You know, Angela, I used to think I needed something from you. From Dad. Maybe respect. Maybe just a little decency. But that dinner? I paused, letting the silence stretch. That was a gift. What do you mean? It reminded me exactly who you are. Who I've always been to you. A joke. A punchline. She didn't respond, so I continued. You want to talk? Here's the only thing I have to say. I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm free. And the truth is, you're never eating at Cordella's again. Her voice cracked. You're seriously going to block me from a restaurant? No, I said softly. I'm going to block you from mine. Then I hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after that, waiting for the familiar pang of guilt. But it never came. Only calm. Angela was right about one thing. Something had changed. Just not the way she hoped. The next day, my father showed up at Cordella's. He didn't announce himself. Just walked in during the lunch lull, looking like a man who didn't know where else to go. He wore his old leather jacket, the one he'd always bragged about getting for a steal back in '89. And that expression he reserved for when things didn't go his way, tight jaw, fake calm. The maitre d' spotted him instantly. He didn't call security. Didn't raise a fuss. Instead, he walked over, greeted him politely, and said, I'm sorry, sir, but we're not accepting walk-ins today. I'm not here for a meal, my father replied. I'm here for my son. The maitre d' nodded. Mr. Larson is in a meeting. Then I'll wait. I was watching the whole exchange from the security monitor in my office. For a second, I considered going out. Giving him a chance to say, what? Sorry? That I misunderstood the laughter? That he was just playing along? But I didn't move. Instead, I picked up the phone and called the maitre d'. Tell him, I said, that Mr. Larson's no longer available for family visits. There was a pause on the line. Then, understood, sir. I watched as my father was escorted to the door, not roughly, but with unmistakable finality. He didn't fight it. Just stood there for a moment outside the entrance, looking up at the building. Then he walked away. That night, I sat alone at a reserved corner table, sipping espresso after the last guests had left. The staff had long since stopped treating me like the elusive owner. I was just Tom, the guy who'd started with nothing and built something they were proud to be part of. And as I sat there, I realized the strangest thing. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Angela. Not at my father. Not even at the years I'd spent chasing their approval like a dog chasing a car he'd never catch. Because now I didn't have to chase anything. A week passed. Then came the knock at my apartment door. It was Travis. Not Angela. Not my father. Just Travis, standing in the hallway with that same defeated look he'd worn at dinner. I'm not here to ask you for anything, he said quickly. I wanted to talk. I let him in, mostly out of curiosity. He looked around the apartment like he'd expected something else. Less polished. Less me. I didn't know about any of it, he said, sitting on the edge of my couch. Cordella's? Your business? Any of it? I nodded. Not surprising. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't laugh at you that night. I want you to know that. I know, I said. There was a long silence. She's been a wreck, he added. Your sister. She's trying to figure out how to make it right. She doesn't want to make it right, I replied calmly. She wants to not be embarrassed. That stopped him. You're probably right, he admitted. But still, you didn't deserve that. I sipped my coffee, let the quiet stretch. You know what's funny? I said. For years I thought I was the invisible one. Turns out, I was the only one actually doing something. Travis looked at me. You don't want anything from them, do you? No, I said. Not anymore. He stood, a little awkwardly. I'll tell her not to reach out again. I gave a small nod. Appreciate it. He hesitated at the door, then turned back. For what it's worth. I think what you built is incredible. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. He left, and I locked the door behind him, not just to the apartment, but to that part of my life. Angela could keep her status games. My father could keep his selective pride. I had something better. It was the silence that followed that told me I'd truly turned a page. No more calls. No more apologies wrapped in ego. For once, they stayed quiet, like they finally realized the power they used to hold over me was gone. And in that silence, I flourished. Cordella's reached its 3rd anniversary that month. The staff threw a small after-hours celebration in the wine room. There were toasts, laughter, even a few tears from my head chef, Julio, who'd been with me since day one. After the last glass was poured and the lights dimmed low, I stood in the middle of the room and looked around, not at the decor, not at the wine list I'd curated, but at the people. The ones who'd chosen me. Who'd stayed. Who believed. That night, I posted a photo from our celebration, a simple shot of me and the kitchen team, arms over shoulders, smiling wide. The caption read, 3 years ago, we opened Cordella's with more grit than glamour. We were overlooked, underestimated, and told it couldn't be done. But we did it anyway. Here's to those who doubted us. You made this moment even sweeter. It wasn't petty. It was peace. But it landed like a thunderclap. I got a text the next morning from a number not saved in my phone, but still familiar. I saw your post. I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk? Angela. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back a single sentence. You can say what you need to say here. No response for a few minutes. Then another ping. I was jealous. I always was. You never needed attention to be happy, and I hated that. I wanted to be admired, and you just build things quietly. I didn't think you'd ever succeed. And when you did, it scared me. I read the words 3 times. Then I responded. It's not success that scared you. It's being seen. And now that people see me, you're afraid they'll see you too, for who you are. She didn't reply. I didn't expect her to. Some truths aren't meant to be answered. Only acknowledged. And in that final silence, I felt the last thread break. I was no longer the shadow trailing behind their parade. I was the sun they never thought would rise. Weeks passed. Autumn settled in with its crisp evenings and soft, golden light. The restaurant took on a new rhythm, truffle specials in the kitchen, a deeper red in the wine pairings, guests arriving bundled in tailored coats and scarves. Cordella's always felt warm, but now, it felt settled. Mature. Like it had become what I always hoped it would be. One night, near closing, I stayed back in the office going through staff schedules. A soft knock came at the door. It was Juliet, our maitre d'. Her expression was unreadable. There's someone at the front. Says she won't leave unless she talks to you. I didn't need to ask who. Angela was sitting in the lounge, coat still buttoned, hair done just enough to pretend she didn't care. Her eyes flicked up when she saw me, unsure whether to smile or look remorseful. She landed somewhere in the middle. "You're hard to get a hold of," she said quietly. "I've been here," I said, nodding to the floor beneath us. "You just never look down far enough to notice." She winced. "I deserve that." I waited. She glanced around, eyes taking in every inch of the space. I could see the jealousy still lingering under the surface, but also something else. Maybe regret. "Dad's not doing great," she said. "He hasn't been out much since that night. Keeps asking why you won't take his calls. Because he laughed when his daughter called his son a pathetic joke," I said evenly. "And then kept eating his steak." Angela sighed. "I know. I know how bad it was. And I've been trying to fix it." "You can't fix it," I said. "Not with a visit. Not with a sorry." "Then what do you want from me?" she asked, a little louder. I looked at her carefully, slowly. "Nothing," I said. "And that's what's killing you, isn't it?" She blinked, caught off guard. "For the first time in your life," I continued, "you don't have leverage. No strings to pull. No forgiveness to buy. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm not waiting for you to come around. You have nothing I need." Angela opened her mouth. Closed it again. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Do you remember what you said at dinner?" I asked, voice low. "That I was a pathetic joke? That I wasn't going anywhere?" She nodded slowly. I leaned forward. "You're right. I didn't go anywhere. I went everywhere you didn't." Then I stood. "I think we're done here." She rose too, stunned into silence. As she walked out, I watched the staff look up, every host, every server, every chef whose life I'd impacted quietly. They didn't nod at her. They didn't smile. They waited for me. And I nodded. And just like that, she was gone. That weekend I stood on the rooftop terrace above Cordella's, something I'd designed but rarely visited. The city stretched beneath me, glittering, alive. I could see the entrance from where I stood, and through the windows below, the soft dance of candlelight over linen and laughter. Inside, my world moved on without them. No apologies. No need for approval. Just peace. I watched as a young couple walked in, nervous, excited, the way I used to feel trying to impress someone. A server greeted them like family. That's what I'd built. Not just a restaurant. A refuge. A reminder. Behind me, the wind was cool but kind. I pulled my coat tighter and smiled. Let them talk. Let them remember what they lost. I wasn't waiting to be seen anymore. I was already standing in the light. And I didn't need them to see me to know I was finally home.